was muted. So I wanted to highlight this event. George was talking about the riots in Chicago in the 1880s, which kind of led to like a precursor event to the formation of the Bureau of Investigation, now the FBI, by executive order by President Theodore Roosevelt. I was just mentioning there how, and I apologize that I was muted. I'll edit out that last 2 minutes. Theodore Roosevelt was speaking to the Knights of Columbus in 1915 at Carnegie Hall, and I read out his whole speech out of my YouTube channel about over a year ago. I recommend people check that out. But it was Theodore Roosevelt created the Bureau of Investigation by executive order, and he placed a Roman Catholic, Charles Joseph Bonaparte, as the first director. Charles Joseph Bonaparte being directly related to Napoleon Bonaparte. I just want to make sure my screen's still shared there. And actually, in terms of Bonaparte, I have a quote on a post I did a long time ago, just on the FBI here. This was from a biography of Bonaparte written by a Catholic priest, Charles Joseph Bonaparte. His life and public services by Bishop Joseph Buckland. But this is what Buckland says here. He says, his, Charles Joseph Bonaparte's, militant loyalty to the Catholic Church was exhibited on all occasions. I'll just read that sentence there. So that's the guy who found that this is the first director of the Bureau of Investigation. And what I was saying while I was muted there is that there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that warrants the creation of an FBI. Essentially, it's the Pope's inquisitorial Gestapo that has been hoisted on the American public. And this event here, which is actually taking place today, January 28th, 2021, there's something that's called the International Conference on Cybersecurity, which is a joint project between the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, and Jesuit Fordham University. This is an annual conference at Jesuit Fordham, which has been taking place for over 10 years now. You can see I'm on the Jesuit Fordham website. If you can see my screen, George. The Federal Bureau of Investigation at Fordham University will host a complimentary ICCS, that's the abbreviation, the ICCS special event Thursday, January 28th from 2 to 3 p.m. as part of the virtual ICCS speaker series. And how ironic that the day before this conference, George, it comes out that the leader of the Proud Boys was an FBI informant too. Tarrant, or whatever that guy's name is, Proud Boys leader. And the Proud Boys, of course, used the Roman wreath on their uniform. But this right here from the article, it says the FBI strategy for tackling cyber threats in 2021 and beyond with Director Christopher Wray. So Director Wray's remarks will be followed by a discussion with Ed Strotz. This Ed Strotz went to Jesuit Fordham, founder of the Strotz Friedberg, known as the Aon Cyber Solutions, and Matt Gorman, Assistant Director of the FBI Cyber Division. This is key here. The session will be moderated by Jesuit Fordham University President Joseph M. McShane, S.J. So the Jesuit is mediating the cybersecurity conference. You see here the ICCS is the premier global cybersecurity event. This is at Jesuit Fordham, attracting leading speakers from the government, the private sector, and academia. It is, quote, an unparalleled opportunity for global leaders in cyber threat analysis, operations research, and law enforcement to coordinate and share their efforts to create a, quote, more secure world.
Oh, Eric.
So George, so obviously censorship will be the main talk here. How can we eliminate all of the Pope's enemies on the internet?
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you mind? I made reference to the Haymarket explosion. I just needed to make a correction. It was actually on May the 4th, 1886. Now, I said May the 1st. Well, the mayor of Chicago at the time was a fellow by the name of Carter Henry Harrison Sr. His dates were the 15th of February, 1825 to October the 28th, 1893. And I'm sure Zach would know the significance of those dates. But anyhow, he got his undergrad degree from Yale. He served as the 29th and 33rd mayor of Chicago. Now, this Harrison was the mayor of Chicago during the Haymarket explosion. Among other things, he was a member of the Scroll and Key.
Oh, the Yale Scroll and Key?
Yes. So,
Interesting.
As I said, this is something that has been basically not written out of the history books, but most people have never heard of the Haymarket explosion. This took place, as I said, in 1886.
Well, just George, I wonder if do you see my screen
So
here?
it
I
was
wonder if
blamed.
George, I'm just wondering if the city of Chicago had their Roman military fasces representing fascism and Roman military conquest. I wonder if they had the fasces on the city hall at that point at this Haymarket rally. You can see it where my mouse is here. That's at Chicago City
Oh,
Hall.
okay.
And actually, didn't you mention that Lightfoot, the current mayor's top advisor, went to Georgetown? What was it, Clausen?
Yes, his name is Clausen.
Maurice?
Oh, was it Clausen? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Yes, he got his undergrad degree from Georgetown. Morris Clausen.
That's a great find. Well,
So
I
they
wonder what
run. Okay.
I'm just going to try to
Well,
find out what year this fasces went up in Chicago, just because that's as clear as it gets that Rome's running the show. And George, just there's one more thing I wanted to show you just with Chicago. If you haven't seen this, like there's literally like ancient Rome. Like you see my screen here, George?
yes, not very well. It's small.
Oh yeah. So this is at the Chicago Cook County Courthouse. But you can see this is like the symbol of the Roman Empire. SPQC, the Roman Gregorian eagle. Here you got a Roman centurion with fasces underneath. Like this, Chicago literally is like ancient Rome, the way
Hmm.
it's lined up. And I was
Well,
saying before, while I was briefly muted there, again, I'll edit out that little 2 minute block. I was saying how like during the Chicago fire, which took place around the same time as these quote unquote anarchist riots, you had the Jesuit church being one of the only buildings that wasn't burned down in the Chicago fire.
yeah. So there's a couple St. Michael's Catholic Church, and you had the Jesuit Church in Chicago. And there's an article about this in American Magazine. I guess it was those magic rosaries that did the job.
Oh, just like the Magic Rosary saved the Jesuits from the nuclear explosion at Hiroshima. And actually, it's just Zach saying in the comments that the Haymarket bomb in Chicago was on May 4th, which is a date gematria of 54, May being the fifth month. So Jesuit order equals 54 in gematria.
Oh, so is
There you go.
Zach in
So
the
it lines.
chat?
Yeah, yeah. It looks like Zach is in the chat. But yeah, okay. So look at the Haymarket bomb was on May 4th, a day with 54 numerology. Jesuit order equals 54. Taking place in the Jesuit city of Chicago. You can see on my photo, like Chicago is ancient Rome. It makes sense that no, to me, I think that shows that it was a Jesuit orchestrated event. And like you said, it was like kind of like a false flag event, which gave the government the means and the ammo to create the Bureau of Investigation by executive order,
Well,
and and
also,
then
well,
Put Roman Catholic Charles Joseph Bonaparte as the first Grand Inquisitor of America. Was you there, George? Or
yes, I am. I'm looking up. Okay, no way. Okay, the police commissioner of Chicago at the time was Frederick Eberzold. His dates were the 30th of March, 1841 to January 21st, 1900. He was actually born in Bavaria to a German Catholic family.
oh wow, there you go. Wow. So of course, the police are going to be in on it, and actually that kind of reminds me of just reading the book Slavery and Catholicism. Richard Roscoe Miller, he said that during the draft riots in New York City during the Civil War, led by Archbishop of New York John Dagger Hughes, that the reason the riots went on for so long is because the all the police and law enforcement were of Catholic extraction. Sounds like
Boy,
similar with
boy, I'm
this
glad that.
Haymarket.
Also, that sounds similar to what happened in D.C. a few weeks ago.
Oh, absolutely. When they were the protests, when they
Now,
were just let in. Yeah, I
And
know
now, of
I don't
course,
know this
the
guy.
mayor of DC is Muriel.
Oh, Bowser. Yeah, she's a Catholic, devout Roman Catholic. I
Oh,
just want to
yes.
find the head of the Metro
And of
Police.
course, if you
Yeah,
look at the
I was just saying. So it looks like the current guy they replaced. They replaced the current. So the current chief of police there, Robert Conti. He became effective January 2nd, 2021, but he replaced Peter Newsham, who was the chief there from 2017, right up to before the Capitol quote insurrection. But Peter Newsham here, who was in charge of the Metro Police in Washington, went to Jesuit College of the Holy Cross. You can see it right there. And Kathleen Lehner before him was the devout Roman Catholic. You can see pictures of her going to mass even. There right here, Kathy Lehner. Yeah, actually, I believe she's even wearing like a yeah. You can see her Roman Catholic knighthood like on her uniform. I believe she was knighted as like a knight of Columbus or something like that. You see that right there, that Maltese cross. No, you're absolutely right, George. The Metro Police is totally Roman Catholic, which makes sense because Washington D.C. is the district of Catholics in between the states of Virginia and Maryland, Virgin Mary. And just to highlight, just going back to this international conference on cybersecurity, this is taking place today at 2 to 3 p.m. You see the speakers. You got the director. This is at Jesuit Fordham University. You got the speakers: Christopher Wray, director of the FBI; Edward Strauss, Jesuit Fordham graduate, quote, accomplished entrepreneur and trusted cyber risk advisor. This guy, 16 years in the FBI, uh, founded a firm called Aon Cyber Solutions. Matt Gorman is speaking today at Jesuit Fordham. He's the assistant director of the FBI's cyber division. Uh, he was responsible for
oh,
all
by the way,
cyber
speaking of
investigations. Oh,
okay,
yeah,
speaking
you
of
have a
Gorman,
comment?
what uh, Eric, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Okay, speaking of Gorman, one of the performers at Creepy Joe's ceremony on the 20th was Amanda Gorman, who's a devout Roman Catholic. Well, I'm
Gorman, is
sorry, she
that?
wasn't well, she's a poet.
Oh, is she? Oh, she was the poet. She the
Yes,
black woman poet.
yes.
Well, it makes sense that she's a devout Roman Catholic. You had a Jesuit priest doing the invocation there.
Was it
James,
Donovan? Or
yeah, Leo Donovan, Biden's longtime friend. He did the funeral service for Joe's son Bo, and then Joe Biden actually wrote the foreword to Jesuit Leo Donovan's book. His book was called "Blessed Are the Refugees." He's been just advocating a full-on Roman Catholic invasion of the U.S. And you see, just I mentioned that the leader of this conference here that's going on today is Joseph M. McShane, the president of Jesuit Fordham University, entered the Society of Jesus in 1967, ordained a priest in 77. This guy's probably one of the most powerful Jesuits in America today, is Joseph M. McShane. I actually found a blog article on IBM's own website, uh, written by this Jesuit, Joseph McShane. There he is right there. You see my computer screen, Joseph M. McShane, president of Fordham. He wrote this article called How Jesuit Fordham and IBM Are Teaming Up on Blockchain. Look at that. But this is what the Jesuit says. He says, you may wonder what a 175-year-old Jesuit university in the heart of New York City might have in common with IBM, a global icon of modern technology. Let me assure you that we are linked in ways both deep and long-standing. You see here, most recently in 2009, Jesuit Fordham collaborated with IBM to introduce a new business analytics curriculum to help prepare students for careers in growth industries, including energy, utilities, and healthcare. So it's interesting that this Jesuit, who's very close with IBM, is now moderating the FBI cybersecurity conference. Very interesting to say the least. Of course, there was actually a Jesuit priest. Just while I'm on the topic of IBM, of course, IBM built they allowed Hitler and the Nazis to keep good tabs on their inmates in the concentration camps using their IBM computing technology. There's actually IBM had their own Jesuit priest. And this guy here, Roberto Busa, S.J. People should look up this guy's relationship with IBM. And this guy actually, he met with Thomas Watson, who was the present CEO of IBM, who was knighted by Hitler with the Order of the German Eagle in 1936. It was actually with IBM technology they remastered all of the works of St. Thomas Aquinas. That's what IBM's assets are are being used towards. Very interesting to say the least. And this FBI conference, and you see here being led by this IBM Jesuit, Joseph McShane. This conference has been going on for over 10 years. I've documented this. Here's actually over 10 years. Here's the conference from 2010. This is when Mueller, from the Mueller report. Yeah, the FBI director Robert Mueller was director at the time. You see here from 2010. This is from the FBI New York field office. The International Conference on Cybersecurity, ICCS, 2010, a joint effort between the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Fordham University Jesuit, brought together global leaders and representatives from over 40 countries in emerging cyber threat analysis and enforcement at Jesuit Fordham University's Lincoln Center campus. Among the top speakers to present at this event was FBI Director Robert Mueller III. There you can see, I'll show you the photos from this article. Here you got Robert Mueller with Jesuit Fordham University trustee Mark Toohey there. You got the chairman of the Jesuit Fordham Board of Trustees, John Tugnino, also with the FBI director there. And actually, George, this comes from the book that I'm holding here, just the FBI and the Catholic Church. I know you got a copy of this book, but you remember the Father Robert I. Gannon, president of Fordham University. People, you can see photos on my website. I'll just show you. I'll pull up a photo of this guy while I read this quote. Let's see. So you can see a photo of this president of Fordham with the President Franklin Roosevelt. Where is this here? Right here. At Jesuit Fordham University. And if Roosevelt actually received an honorary degree from Jesuit Fordham back in 1929. There they are there. So this is what Robert I. Gannon, where my mouse said. This is what he said about the FBI.
Franklin Roosevelt.
This, George, this comes from the book, The FBI and the Catholic Church. But Robert I. Gannon, and this is what he wrote to J. Edgar Hoover in 1945, quote, "I like to think the FBI and Fordham have the same ideas," end quote. I'm going to repeat that. He says, "I like to think the FBI and Fordham have the same ideas." And he's saying this back in 1945. So clearly we can see why Fordham University, Jesuit Fordham of all places, is where the FBI chooses to have their, quote, International Cybersecurity Conference. Do you have anything to add to that, George?
Well, okay, there's a reason why we call it the Fascist Bureau of Inquisition.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I have another example of that here, just from and everyone.
Eric?
Oh, hello.
Hello, Eric.
Oh, do you got me, George? Yeah, I got to. My mic's not muted there. Can you hear me?
Okay, so there's a reason why we call it. Okay, there's a reason why we call it the Fascist Bureau of Inquisition.
Oh, absolutely. I think this common sense wise, like, why hasn't the FBI arrested all these pedophile Catholic priests yet? Whoever can get, like, and all their crimes are well documented. It's all in the court files. Like, why are all these Catholic priests getting away with rape and pedophilia?
It's just like, well, you could say, why is it most of the Nazis, after World War II, ended up getting off? a handful of them were convicted. A few were like 10 or 12 were hanged. But the vast majority of them were never even prosecuted.
Absolutely, actually, and I'll go into that because it was the Jesuits working with the FBI, the Operation Paperclip, who brought all the Nazis over into the U.S. and then they dram up the ridiculous anti-communist Inquisition through like the House of Un-American Activities. And the FBI was all about. And there's a book on this called U.S. Intelligence and the Nazis that was published by Cambridge University recently. They have a whole chapter on the FBI response to Nazis in the U.S. And they conclude that they essentially didn't care about Nazis in the U.S. because they were all worried about a quote unquote war on communism, which was completely bogus. You had communists like Louis Buttons who taught at Jesuit Fordham University, and then he converted to Catholicism after supposedly exiting the Communist Party. And it was actually J.J. Murphy all the way back in 1946 called the quote communist Louis Buttons a lay Jesuit. So ultimately, and actually, I have an article that I'll bring up after this that shows how the FBI was supposedly going to indict Chase Bank, the Rockefeller Chase Bank, in 1944 for Nazi collaboration, and it was the prosecutor for the U.S. Southern District of New York, Jesuit trained at Fordham again, Matthias Carrera, blocked the FBI from indicting Chase Manhattan Bank. In reality, it was probably them working together. But from that book, U.S. Intelligence and the Nazis, yet another Jesuit Fordham connection to protecting Nazis is shown. But just I want to show this conference started in 2009. You see from the 2010 article, it says for the second year in a row, Jesuit Fordham has partnered with FBI to sponsor the conference. And actually, President Joseph McShane was still there at this time. President of Fordham, Joseph McShane, welcomed participants to the event. And this is what he said back in 2010, quote, "Learning information has privileged place in the academy. Therefore, it is both natural and providential that Fordham join with the FBI to convene experts in law enforcement, academia, and industry on the integrity of the nation's cyber infrastructure. In its second year, this conference and the close partnership it represents, is a model way forward in protecting what has become a critical component of the global intellectual marketplace." And this, at the time, the acting director of the New York FBI, George Venezuelos, you can see a quote from him here. This guy went to Jesuit Fordham. And here's a photo of Father McShane here with FBI agent, FBI New York Special Assistant Agent Austin Burgess. So again, this connection is wide in the right in the open, and no one's talking about it. How the FBI and Jesuit order are clearly, aligned, and the FBI is the papal inquisitorial Gestapo police force in the U.S. There's no mention of the FBI in the Constitution. The first director of the FBI was a Roman Catholic, Charles Joseph Bonaparte, who viewed Catholics as heretics. I'll show you the photo here. I had it up earlier on, but J. Edgar Hoover received the longtime director of the FBI after the Kennedy assassination. Just a year and 2 days later, after JFK was murdered, Hoover receives an exact replica of Ignatius Loyola's crusading sword that he took into battle to murder the heretics back in the 16th century. You see it right here. Edgar Hoover holding the sword. And I have the quote here also on my website. This Cardinal Richard Cushing of Fordham University. Actually, no, I don't know if he went to Fordham. I think he was a Boston Archbishop. Probably went to affiliated more with Boston College. This is what Cardinal Cushing said of J. Edgar Hoover, and this comes from, I put the source here. This is from an article called "The Director and His Eminence: The Working Relationship in Questions of Church and State," as referenced in Cardinal Cushing's FBI files. Cardinal Cushing said of J. Edgar Hoover, quote, "In these parts, if I quote J. Edgar Hoover, it's just like quoting the Pope." Right there, so it's like clearly, the FBI is a Roman Catholic Inquisition. And here's what Aver Manhattan wrote in The Dollar in the Vatican back in 1957. And I'll just read this, George, and then jump in right after. Aver says, American Catholics, like Catholics the world over, would need not so much the primitive lie detectors used by the American FBI in 1952 as the elaborate, gigantic lie detectors of a future world dictatorship to find out all in its nastiest form the veritable hatred which those of them who are capable of political thinking nurse towards any form of true democracy, including the American. As far as the other things are concerned, however, Catholics are the most honestly outspoken of all Christians, particularly when they feel cheerful. In those moments, they put their hearts in their hands and just let any heretic or indeed any miscreant have a good look. When they can say anything, then they can say anything. Even the greatest of all truths, namely the one cherished for almost 20 centuries, that they are determined to wipe out all non Catholics. An American hierarch, and hence automatically an American, quote, super patriotic teacher, who consequently would never dare to teach, quote, non American principles, said something which, if the FBI had not been riddled with Catholics, might have made it somewhat concerned about the future of genuine American freedom of worship. And here's what Cardinal Cushing said. This is what Ivor quotes him saying, quote, "We cheerily concede," said Cardinal Cushing, Archbishop of Boston, "that, quote, the Catholic Church is engaged in a frankly avowed conspiracy to win America and the world for Christ,
Okay,
and therefore to
Eric,
convert all
something
nations."
you're talking about.
Wait, what were you saying, Jordan? I was saying, you want to jump in? Yeah, I was saying, there's the quote from Cushing. He openly admits that the Catholic Church is trying to make America Catholic. And this is the same guy that said that FBI Director J. Edgar
I'm
Hoover is
sorry.
just like the Pope.
Uh, well, this has been an issue over the last year or so. You've already established for years that Rome runs American law enforcement, definitely on the national and our state level, and most of your major municipal police departments. They run intelligence, spying. Uh, they run the military, but they have absolute hegemony when it comes to the medical field. And that's something that's become critical over the last year or so. I mean, we've talked about Fauci, the fact that he got his undergrad degree from Holy Cross. He went to Regis Prep. His wife went to something like 3 different Catholic / Jesuitical institutions. Robert Redfield got his undergrad medical degree from Eucharistic ministers of the church. The CDC was founded by a Catholic who was trained by the Jesuits. Thomas Hearn, one of the architects of the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, Catholic, who got his medical degree from Georgetown University. Um, the list goes on and on and on. And this whole idea of wearing masks and getting the poke is not only as a so-called public health issue, it's also become a matter of religious dogma. If you dare question their authority or the narrative of the members, you're a heretic worthy to be burned at the stake.
Well, absolutely. Well, George, just on that point, I have the video on my channel. The Dutch Jesuits earlier this year wrote this kind of bogus letter channeling Ignatius of Loyola. But they claim that this came from Ignatius Loyola, but it was just written by Dutch Jesuits.
Mm-hmm.
But the Dutch Jesuits said that we all need to worship the medical authorities like it was God himself, which clearly, shows that this has become like a religious cult. This is nothing about, following the science. And I think your mic was a little just your
Course,
volume was a little iffy there, George. But you mentioned just when you're talking about Redfield, did you say that he goes to Catholic
well, if
Church in
you think
Baltimore?
about it, your doctors and your so-called scientists are basically, well, I guess somewhere, I didn't know if it was Baltimore, but it's somewhere close to DC. Yes.
Okay, and then just maybe just if you have headphones in, maybe just try replugging them in. Your voice is I still got you, but it's not fully clear. Maybe see if you can turn your volume up a little bit on your end there, George.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have headphones.
But that's a bit better there. Well, actually, George, do you see Biden's new pick for Homeland Security? The Mayor Cass. This guy went to Alejandro Mayorkas. He's going to be the new head of Department of Homeland Security, which, like FBI, well, the Department of Homeland Security, I guess, is the newer Gestapo federal police force. They of course got that passed through the 9/11 false flag attack. This guy here, Alejandro Mayorkas, went to Jesuit Loyola Law School, got his doctorate from Jesuit Loyola Law School. And apparently, his father was a Cuban Jew of Sephardic background. Like, isn't that perfect? His mother was a Romanian Jew. So this guy looks like he's a Jew educated by Jesuits. He's got his doctorate from Loyola Law. And that's just something I noticed that Biden's doing a lot of in his administration. He's putting a lot of open Jews in his administration. All these Jews are totally connected to Rome in every single way. The guy Anthony Blinken, you've seen this guy? He's current Secretary of State. Supposedly he's, quote, Jewish. If you look at his wife here, Evan Ryan, who's also in the Biden administration, I'll show you here. So this Anthony Blinken, 71st U.S. Secretary of State. His wife, Evan Ryan, is currently the White House Cabinet Secretary. And Evan Ryan, Anthony Blinken's wife, got her BA from Jesuit Boston College. You can see her right there. She married Blinken and the Holy Trinity Catholic Church, which is now Joe Biden's Catholic Church that he goes to in Washington, D.C. You know, Biden's doing this all over the place, his administration. Like, he put Merrick Garland, a Jew who taught at Jesuit Georgetown University, as his attorney general. Put Janet Yellen, a Jew, as the Secretary of the Treasury, and her husband, Daniel Akharov, taught at Jesuit Georgetown University. So I think they're maybe setting this up for like a Dreyfus affair, possibly, type of thing. Like, let's say like a new Jesuit Trump third fascist right party comes to power, they're going to blame all of the communism of the Biden administration on Jews. Maybe that's what they're setting this up for. But all these guys in power, though, I've showed you, have direct connections to the Jesuits. They're not even hard to find. Like this Anthony Blinken here, who attends Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Washington. His wife, Evan Ryan, the White House press secretary, or White House, what's her position here? Blinken's wife, White House cabinet secretary, went to Jesuit Boston College. She was she was deputy manager for Biden's 2008 presidential campaign. She was served under Jesuit trained skull and bonesman John Kerry. John Kerry is now the climate advisor. Yeah, serving as United States Special Envoy for Climate. Jesuit trained skull and bonesman. And then Blinken's wife, Evan Ryan's also on the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, and she's the deputy chair of the governance track of the Clinton Global Initiative. She's more powerful than Blinken, the Secretary of State. But of course, Blinken being the open Jew at the front, he's going to get pointed as, oh, look, he's the Jew. Look at him. I think that's what they're setting it up for. Are you still there, George? Looks like George is getting his audio fixed there. Yeah, just have you guys seen the chat? I just noticed that Jesuit Biden's putting a lot of Jesuit trained or Jesuit affiliated quote Jews in his administration. I think they're gonna maybe long term set it up for a type of Dreyfus affair where they're gonna blame all the communism from Jesuit Joe Biden and his cronies on Jews. You know, there's a long precedent of the Jesuits doing that. If you want an example of a book on myarchive.org that I just put up, see how it was done in Argentina, read The Catholic Church and the Jews, Argentina, 1933 to 1975. I think it's the exact same playbook that potentially could be used here after the Biden years are finished up. It looks like George lagged out. See if I can get him back in. And if you can't get back in, I'm just going to read one more quote just because I wanted to highlight this video because this conference is taking place later this afternoon, the International Conference on Cybersecurity at Jesuit Fordham. It's been going on since 2009. But just reading back here from the book, The FBI and the Catholic Church, I just want to show you that Jesuit or FBI agents were going to the Jesuit retreat houses as early as 1959. In 1959, Father James Martin, S.J., reported to Hoover, then director of the FBI, on the 72 FBI men who had just completed a retreat at Manresa on Severn. It was, quote, not easy, he noted, quote, for every man had come to Loyola and followed the regulations and the discipline entailed in going through a retreat. That's what the Jesuit James Martin, S.J., said. The director's men, though, quote, got through every part of the services, end quote, as if they were, quote, were in a matter born to this life, end quote, quote. So, quote, permit me, Martin continued, quote, to thank you most sincerely for the interest you have always manifested in the spiritual life and condition of your boys. You are truly a credit for the moral life of this country. There is nothing surprising what the priest wrote. Hoover wanted the men the Jesuits produced. I want to repeat that. Hoover wanted the men the Jesuits produced because they and those who trained them exhibited those things he, quote, admired most in men. And you can this keeps going here. There was a Jesuit priest who's actually a chaplain of the FBI when Hoover was director, named Father Robert Lloyd, S.J. And Hoover gave this guy a big. He gave him a chalice, and in Hoover's chalice, it praised the Eustachi mass murdering psychopathic bishop Archbishop Stepniak as a hero of humanity. And it praised Cardinal Mindszenty, who orchestrated the failed design coup d'etat attempt in Hungary to have the Hungarian patriots crushed by the Soviets as a hero for humanity. See right here, Reverend Robert Lloyd. This is the exact. I found that this is the story from the original, like 1950 Catholic News Archive. That I think this guy, this author of the FBI and the Catholic Church, sorts out. If you can see right here, FBI men throughout country honor priest at his jubilee. There's the Reverend Robert Lloyd. Robert Lloyd. I'll just read a bit more from this book, The FBI and the Catholic Church. You see the relationship. You see, it's the Jesuits' FBI. No exaggeration. The chapter. Let me see here. This chapter is focused on the values and personality traits that led Hoover and Catholics to find so much common ground in so many arenas for cooperation in the period before Vatican II. By 1955 and 1959, FBI men had been making retreats to Manresa for 20 years. 20 years. So the FBI men started going to Jesuit retreat houses in 1939 at the height of fascism in the world. You had Hitler in power, Catholic Adolf Hitler, Catholic Francisco Franco, Catholic Benito Mussolini, Catholic Ante Pavlich, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Catholic De Oliveira, the dictator of Ireland. Military coup d'etat in Argentina around this time, supported by the Catholic Church. They support every bloody military coup in South America and all across the world. So again, the Jesuits are all about fascism and military dictatorships. That's their ideal way a society runs. We see by 1959, FBI men had been making retreats to Manresa for 20 years. During the first 15 or so, its director was Father Robert Lloyd, S.J., you see right there, who moved there from Georgetown Prep in Garrett Park, Maryland. Lloyd and Hoover had met during the Lindbergh kidnapping case and developed a particularly close friendship. The Jesuit consoled the director when his mother died in 1938. And this is what Hoover writes, quote, in the past year, Hoover testified, quote, I have had my trials and sorrows, deep sorrow, and I can say from my heart tonight that had it not been for the steadfast friendship of Father Lloyd and the consolation he gave me, I do not know how I would have stood them. Values, too, helped Hoover and Jesuit Lloyd grow close. In the Manresan Jesuit magazine, the Jesuit attacked virtually everything that Hoover opposed and supported virtually everything Hoover espoused. He did all this in the gendered but plain language of the spiritual athlete and warrior that he had learned at home and in his Jesuit training. Hoover and the FBI expressed their affection for Jesuit Robert Lloyd, who gave the invocation at the National Police Academy's graduation exercises 39 consecutive times in 3 unprecedented ways, 39 consecutive times. This guy spoke at the FBI National Police Academy. Interestingly, the Jesuit priest Edmund Walsh, it's also cited in this book, was a regular speaker at the FBI Police Academy. But again, I'm just going to read the chalice. Upon his return to Manresa, the Jesuit found that the FBI had installed a metal filing cabinet with a built-in safe to hold in the chalice. Let's talk about the chalice. I'm just not going to read the whole page. Lloyd framed his comment to the FBI's gift with the context of the worldwide struggle against communism. Quote, this is what the Jesuit, or this is what the FBI said to or this is what the Father Robert S. Lloyd said about getting the chalice from the FBI. Quote, think of Cardinal Mindszenty. Think of Cardinal Stepniak. Remember, Stepniak was the Ustashi mass murdering fanatic who oversaw the genocide of over 800,000, probably over 1 million in Croatia. 1 million people dead over this guy's watch in a span of a year. Think of the persecuted priests and nuns and the Christian laity behind the iron curtain of terror and godlessness. Then think of the chalice of salvation presented to your most humble and unworthy servant from the hands of Director Hoover, the head of the greatest law enforcement agency in the world. There you go. They did such a good job, right, when they had Roman Catholic William Sweeney lead the FBI case after Jeffrey Epstein. He had FBI William F. Sweeney Jr., who went to Roman Catholic Villanova University, right there, and who attends Catholic Mass with Cardinal Dolan. I wonder why the FBI, quote, lost the videotape at the jail where Epstein was at. I wonder why. They had Roman Catholic William Sweeney as the head investigator, who goes to Mass with Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York, who is a documented pedophile protector. I wonder why. It looks like George is back here. But yeah, George, I'm probably going to wrap it up in a couple minutes. Do you want to just kind of do a conclusion or some summation or bring anything else up you wanted to, anything else you're researching before we sign off? I'm probably going to, well, I'll probably do another 15 minutes. I'll go to about the hour mark before we sign off here.
Okay, so well, as always, it's a pleasure working with you, and we'll have to do this again soon. Couple things. I just want to, here in the U.S., we have 2 vaccines they're using, the Moderna and the Pfizer. What's available in your neck of?
Well, in Canada, they also got Moderna and Pfizer are the 2 candidates right now. There's a Canadian vaccine that they're supposedly working on at the moment. Right now, it's just Moderna and Pfizer. And
Okay,
Moderna
so
actually I found it just I had a commenter. There's actually a Jesuit connection from Canada to Moderna, and it was the one of the co-founders of Moderna. His name is Nubar Afeyan. I'll put my screen share on here just so everyone can see this guy. I don't know if you've come across this individual, George. This guy went to the most prominent Jesuit school in Canada, is Loyola High School in Montreal. The Jesuit Black Pope Arturo Sosa actually toured this specific high school back in, I think, 2017. This is where Zbigniew Brzezinski went to school. We see Nubar Afeyan, Armenian American entrepreneur. So he's an Armenian American who went to school by Jesuits in Canada. Armenian American entrepreneur, inventor, and philanthropist. He is best known for co-founding the biotechnology company Moderna. You see right here, his family fled Lebanon during the Civil War in 1975. He then graduated from Jesuit Loyola High School in Montreal in 1978. So there's a Jesuit connection to Moderna. And I mentioned how their current head of government relations, or the senior vice president of government engagement, John Lepore, went to Jesuit Georgetown and Jesuit Boston College. This guy was the former head of government affairs at GlaxoSmithKline, one of the biggest vaccine companies in the world. And I think we've covered you read the story, George. I think we mentioned on Team Breeze, but Pfizer got the Viagra drug approved by the Pope.
I think you mentioned that. But speaking of Pfizer, I'm sure you probably covered this before. I got an email from you a few weeks ago. One of the members of the board of directors for Pfizer is an American named Dave Fredrickson, who got his undergrad degree from Georgetown University. One of the other members for Pfizer, and Pfizer, by the way, is a British and Swedish company. They merged back in the 1990s. Now, Pfizer. Uh, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Not Pfizer, AstraZeneca.
Well, AstraZeneca.
AstraZeneca.
Oh, yes,
AstraZeneca
'cause
is
it's Oxford University where they're making that, right? Where the Jesuits have their Campion College there at Oxford.
yes. Okay, I'm sorry. It's AstraZeneca, not Pfizer. AstraZeneca. Uh, you said something about Dave Fredrickson a few weeks ago. You mentioned that he got his undergrad degree from Georgetown University, and he's actually an American. One of the other members of the board of directors is Leif Johansson. He's a knight of the holy. He's a knight of the Order of the Seraphim, which is a Swedish knighthood.
Actually, I'll pull up that photo. People haven't seen that. I did a video way back, just going through some of going through the membership list. But yeah, this is the highest knighthood given by the monarchy of Sweden. People can see right there. Clearly, there's the Jesuit IHS right on the center. Symbolic that the Jesuits have conquered, quote, Protestant Sweden. There it is, right there.
Yes, of course. Of
People
course.
people should check out they have a list, I believe, on the Wikipedia of members of the order. Yeah, list of Knights of the Order of the Seraphims. People can check out the lists here.
Also, another vaccine that has not been.
Sorry, keep going, George.
Okay, one of the other vaccines that has not been officially approved yet in the United States, but probably will be in the next month or two, is Johnson & Johnson. One of the members of the board of directors there is Francois Nader. He got his undergraduate degree from St. Joseph's University in Beirut, Lebanon.
Oh, great find. Yeah, that school, they completely control Lebanon through St. Joseph's there. It's like the Georgetown of Lebanon. I think I sent you guys a Johnson and Johnson. Let me just check here.
No, that
Oh
means
yeah, this.
sound confused.
Oh yeah, I found another one from Johnson and Johnson here. You see my screen, George? Joaquin
Yes.
Duato, vice chairman of the executive committee, Johnson and Johnson. This guy went to the Jesuit Assad Business School in Barcelona, Spain. This is Jesuit. I'm just going to show people. See, Assad Business School. You see, Assad is a private Jesuit educational institution within the Ramon Llull University in Barcelona, Catalonia, Spain. Assad runs two schools at the university: Assad Business School and the Assad Law School. So this is Jesuit here. So you see the current Joaquin Duato, vice chairman of the executive committee of Johnson and Johnson, openly trained by Jesuits, dual citizen of Spain and the United States. Also involved with UNICEF, involved with a whole bunch of different organizations you can see there. As you says, Joaquin says played an instrumental role in leading the turnaround of Johnson and Johnson's pharmaceutical sector. As a member of the company for over 30 years, Jesuit-trained Joaquin Duato was named company group chairman of the Americas in 2009. He then continued leading the global transformation upon his appointment to his most recent role as executive vice president and worldwide chairman in pharmaceuticals in 2011. During that time, the sector grew to what it is today, the fourth largest innovative pharmaceutical company globally. The results are clear, with 17 new products launched since 2011 and up to 10 potential billion-dollar medicines expected to be launched and are filed before 2021. Johnson & Johnson Pharmaceuticals is poised to extend its growth. So there you go. This guy's credited for the growth and development of Johnson & Johnson in the last 30 years. And how fitting he's educated by Jesuits in Spain. And then, George, and if you go through all of these companies, George, you find that all the board of directors are stacked. Like here, you got William Bentley Ball, the current legal counsel of Pfizer, is a knight of Saint Gregory the Great, educated at Notre Dame University, also educated at Villanova University, educated also at Notre Dame Cathedral Latin School. So John McKean here, director, vice president, member of the executive committee, executive vice president of Pfizer, Catholic educated Jesuit or Roman Catholic St. John Preparatory School. Here, honorary degree from Catholic of the Sacred University of the Sacred Heart in Milan, Italy. Nick documented this long time, like all the longtime prominent executives at Pfizer. So Robert Schaefer, I mentioned this guy even in the Dollar in the Vatican write-up I did. Former vice president of public affairs and government relations of Pfizer for 30 years, 1966 to 1996. Jesuit educated, Georgetown University, educated at Benedictine College of St. Benedict and St. John's University. Now this guy is the Knight of Malta ambassador to the United Nations. Permanent observer. Sovereign Military Order of Malta, the United Nations, from 2004 to 2015. There's the example I said earlier. Pfizer received the Vatican's blessing on Viagra. Right there. Pfizer even sent representatives of the Vatican to see how the Catholic Church would respond to the pill. Luckily for Pfizer, the Vatican approved of Viagra because of its ability for marital sexual encounters. And Johnny, I know brought it up on a recent stream, but you had the Pope say that it's okay to take the COVID vaccine even when it has aborted fetuses in it. That it's moral to do that. You got a current executive, chief financial officer, global vice president, global supply of Pfizer, Jesuit educated from St. Peter's University, Frank D'Amelio, right there. So Nick did a great job putting this article together. But if you go through all of the corporate, all of these big vaccine manufacturers, it's the same thing, George. And even have you heard of the Council for Inclusive Capitalism? I have a video of Lynn Forster de Rothschild on my YouTube channel bragging about how good this is. Basically, this is all the world's biggest CEOs are teaming up with the Pope to create a quote unquote fairer world. Yeah, it's just classic Jesuit double talk. In reality, it's just global Franco-capitalism and communism. If you look at some of the guardians of the Council for Inclusive Vatican with the Vatican, I think the CEO of Merck is on here. And you got Mark Bainov, Salesforce is interesting. This guy is also on the World Economic Forum. This guy's is a Jew supposedly, but Salesforce is teaming up with Microsoft and Oracle to make a quote unquote COVID-19 passport. Edward Breen, Irish Catholic, chairman, CEO of DuPont. How fitting. Oliver Bate, chairman of the board of Alliance. Ajay Banga, executive chairman, MasterCard. Mark Carney, Roman Catholic, finance advisor to the Prime Minister, COP26, and special envoy for climate action and finance. Bruno Cucinelli, another Catholic. Carmine DeCibo, another Catholic. If you look at Johnson & Johnson, there, Johnson & Johnson's represented, George. You see that there? Alex Gorski, chairman of the board, CEO of Johnson & Johnson. And I just want to show you, so Johnson & Johnson's on the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. Bank of America, of course. Der Spiegel magazine said the Jesuits provided Bank of America with the startup capital. Even had the California State Treasurer, Fiona Ma, on the Council for Inclusive Capitalism at the Vatican. Current head of the Rockefeller Foundation, Rajiv Shah. Rockefeller Foundation is also working on a quote-unquote COVID passport. I mentioned Lynn Forrester de Rothschild. The company Merck is represented on here. I have that documented on my website. That wasn't the full list. Bankofamerica.com has the full list. Let me just pull that up here, George. But it just shows yet another undeniable vaccine connection with the Vatican. The Vatican for hundreds of years has been supportive of vaccines. Merck, where is that here? I know this. Okay, right here. Kenneth Fraser, chairman of the board, CEO of Merck. I believe Merck actually was a German pharmaceutical company. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that came out of the IG Farben, the Jesuit IG Farben monopoly. So you see, this guy doesn't have any apparent Jesuit breadcrumbs on his wiki page, but this guy is on the Council for Inclusive Capitalism at the Vatican, current CEO of Merck. So I recommend people check out the whole list for that council is here. You see there by the Bank of America newsroom. I'll just read the about statement. The Council for Inclusive Capitalism at the Vatican is a global nonprofit organization established under the auspices of the Vatican with the moral guidance of Pope Francis. And just to tie it in with what we're seeing with the FBI cybersecurity conference today with the FBI, what the FBI's role and Homeland Security's role and all really law enforcement's role across the world will be to ensure that the massive corporations in cahoots with the with the Vatican have all of their property protected. Because it's already been ruled by the U.S. Supreme Court, is actually a Catholic judge, Antonin Scalia, that wrote the decision in Castle versus Gonzalez. But American citizens, or United States citizens, have no obligation to police protection. So we're going to see that the police will be sent out to protect the global CEOs of the private property and protect the Pope's financial assets. That's what they'll be talking about for them today. This year, our mission is to harness the potential of the private sector to create a more, quote, inclusive, sustainable, and trusted form of capitalism. The council is led by a core of group global CEOs and public leaders known as Guardians for Inclusive Capitalism who convene annually with the Vatican to advance the council's mission. So it's so in the open now, George. Kind of incredible.
Well, it's interesting. I realize things are a little bit different here in the States than they are, north of the border. But I've had to talk to my local cops, the local police department, a few times last year or so regarding the whole mask nonsense. Now, fortunately, Zach, where he's living, I guess in Washington State, they're a little bit more reasonable at his post office. They are not here. They became for about 6 months or so. They were not the U.S. My local post offices were not enforcing the mask rules. Well, I guess in October, November, they said, you know what, we are. Therefore, we're not allowing anybody inside. And so I talked to the police, and they said, hey, that's not our jurisdiction. We have no say. Now, the U.S. Post Office is a semi-governmental entity. It's not quite a private. Well, it's semi-private, but semi-public. It's a hybrid. Anyhow, so we have no control what governmental entities do or what private businesses do. We're just here to enforce the law. So, in other words, I don't mean to sound flippant. In other words, our job here is to collect a paycheck and serve enough time until we can retire and get a pension.
Well, it's a similar excuse that the Nazis gave at Nuremberg. I'm just doing my job.
Well, or rather, or not doing my job. They said if the cops were really interested in protecting the public, serving the needs of the citizens, they would go in these businesses, hey, knock this stupidity off. You're in violation of several state and federal laws. I'm talking about in California. I suppose they say, like in Canada, they say you're in violation of several national and provincial laws. But I hear the cops are just as corrupt in your country as they are here, especially the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They're probably the worst.
Oh, absolutely. I call them the Royal Catholic Masonic Police.
Okay. So but you see, this is not a Canadian problem. This is not an American problem. This is a worldwide problem. I've heard from people in the UK, in England, in Scotland, in Wales, in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa, all over Europe, Germany, Italy, Spain, France. The cops are not doing anything. If anything, they're more like they're basically terrorists in uniform.
Absolutely. Here's a good. I just wanted to bring up this example of terrorism done by the FBI related to the Catholic Church before we sign off. But there's the famous Robert Hansen spy affair. Robert Hansen, member of the group. Catholic Secret Society, Opus Dei, who attended the St. Catherine of Siena Church in Great Falls, Virginia, where FBI Director Louis Freeh attended. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who I mentioned, wrote the decision in the Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, and scores of other U.S. government spooks from the Iran-Contra era. But it's very interesting because Robert Hansen was, he of course was giving top secret, like engaging in high treason, real high treason, not the fake sedition that's being promoted right now by that false flag at the Capitol a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. Robert Hansen was giving, top U.S. military secrets, top patents, everything you can imagine in terms of secrets to Soviet Russia for over 25 years, and he wasn't even executed for this after. He had a Jesuit lawyer, Plato Charteris, at Georgetown, which won a ruling that the American public would never be able to see what treason was committed. And while he was doing this, there was a group at Robert Hansen's Opus Dei FBI director, St. Catherine of Siena Church, called Aid to the Church in Russia, you see, which had been operating for the past several years out of St. Catherine under the direction of a former church deacon, Marcel Gorenzino, who is now resident in Moscow. Among directors of the Aid to Church in Russia are Nia O'Shea, Freedom House, a hub of Project Democracy Insurgency, often under the guise of religious liberty. In Knight of Malta, Jesuit-trained Frank Shakespeare, who is Ronald Reagan and Bush era ambassador to the Holy See and a principal player in the public diplomacy, quote, secret parallel government apparatus within the State Department. And what the secret parallel government is the Roman Catholic Church. That the Roman Catholic Church is the deep state. But it's interesting that while Hansen is engaging in high treason for Russia, the church, the FBI church, or the FBI parish that he goes to, has set up aid to Russia groups. I mean, just fascinating stuff. But it shows like how the Catholic Church, as Johnny would say, is an insurgency. And you had a Jesuit-trained FBI agent, Eric O'Neill, quote unquote, bring Hansen in after 20 years. And then, like I said, the case was deemed that the American public didn't get to learn anything about the case. It just kind of went away, and the story just died. But here's just more background on the FBI agent Robert Philip Hansen. Just jumping after this story, I just wanted to get this across on the stream status covering the FBI. Now look at Roman Catholic Opus Dei Hansen's circle at St. Catherine. In 1994, St. Catherine Deacon Keith Fournier distributed a Christian Coalition election to parishioners. He had worked directly with Pat Robertson's Christian Coalition. Of course, Pat Robertson is a total Protestant fraud. He's probably a native Malta. The purpose of the guide was to support the election of Oliver North to the U.S. Senate in Virginia on the single issue grounds that he was anti-abortion. And this article came from Lyndon LaRouche's magazine. But the LaRouche movement was actively opposing North for his anti-constitutional role in the drug-running Iran-Contra operation. Sometime after the distribution of the Christian Coalition election guide, Reverend Jerome Fasano, who is the pastor at St. Catherine Opus Dei Parish, was replaced by Reverend McAfee. Because of opposition to the distribution of Christian Coalition literature to Catholics, Fournier formed the Catholic Alliance to give his work the cover of being Catholic. Another operation at St. Catherine's is the creation of an organization called the Aid to Church in Russia, founded by the Reverend Marcel Gorenzino while he was a deacon at St. Catherine. Warren Carroll is on the board of directors. That's one of the Catholic CIA founders of Christendom College, and of course, it was the Christendom College priest. What was the name of that priest? On 9/11, there was that priest at the Pentagon who was there the day of the attacks on 9/11. I just can't think of his name right now. That priest was the president of Christendom College at the time. But Warren Carroll is on the board of directors, as are Frank Shakespeare and Nina Shea of Freedom House. Given that Robert Hansen, FBI agent, a parishioner of St. Catherine's, pled guilty to spying for the Soviets and then the Russians, the fact that this organization was created at St. Catherine's and involves Warren Carroll is not insignificant. Note in this connection is the fact that Paul Weyrich, and this guy's a Roman Catholic papal knight affiliated with the Heritage Foundation, is also actively involved in Russia through the Kriebel Institute, of which he was appointed president in 1889. Weyrich has been since 1997 on the board of directors for the Freedom and Democracy Institute of Russia. So that's just kind of the background, just on and actually just interesting. Robert Philip Hansen's daughter, Susan Hansen, uh, is at the Catholic University of Dallas, where she lived at an Opus Dei residence. So this kind of just shows like the intersection of high treason in the Catholic Church. You had an Opus Dei agent, Robert Philip Hansen, selling out the U.S. for over 25 years, and nothing really happened to him at the end of the day. He wasn't given punishment for sedition. All of the information was kept top secret, and that kind of exemplifies how it's the Jesuits and it's the Pope's FBI.
Okay,
Yeah, we're a little over an hour, George. So do you want to wrap it up before we sign off?
so something I realize this is true in the world, especially in the United States. Law enforcement, as you've already established in the Gonzalez versus Castle Rock decision back in 2005, and there have been other cases, the Winnebago case, that municipal law, state troopers, the police are under no obligation whatsoever to protect the public, even when they know that private citizens are in clear and present danger, such as a wife or a estranged wife has a restraining order against her husband or ex-husband. That was a whole rationale. That was the whole rationale behind the whole Gonzalez Castle Rock case, or Castle Rock versus Gonzalez versus Castle Rock. So not only are they not under any obligation to protect you, the cops are indemnified. That means that's a fancy way of saying they're protected. They cannot be fired. They cannot be sued. They cannot face civil or criminal action. The department or the officers in question, the participants. Moreover, something we just found out recently in the last year or so, not only are they under no obligation to protect you, they now have license to terrorize you. They can arrest you. They can issue a ticket for not wearing a mask, even though that's completely illegal and unconstitutional. Now, fortunately, most law enforcement agencies are not being Nazis about that, but there are some that are, such as I hear that's especially the case in Hawaii, specifically in Honolulu and places like New York City. They're
Well, George,
actually
I'm just
issuing
curious. Do you
people
know if
tickets.
Ms. Georgia, do you know if the National Sheriff's Association has made any announcement on masks? I'm just bringing that because I pulled up their logo. This is a powerful example of Roman control of law enforcement in the U.S. Just on the National Sheriff Association's seal, which I believe this was created all the way back in 1940. You can see the Roman fasces right on the center with the Roman laurel wreath. So I'd be curious.
Yes.
I'm
So
sure these
I
guys
don't
are
know
very
what.
fascist with the masks. I was just wondering if you've heard anything on that.
Okay, so I don't know their official position on it, but that really varies from department to department. There's no uniform policy, no pun intended, no standardized policy. So they, so
Oh, you still there, George? I might have lost George there on the audio.
oh,
Oh, there you go. I got you now.
other
Oh,
commitments to go take care of. So we'll have to keep in touch, and we'll have to do this soon.
oh, definitely, George. I enjoyed chatting with you. I always, I think we have good conversations. I think we put out good information that very informative, and it's empowering information. So I definitely would love to do it again. Maybe we can get
Okay,
Johnny and some of the other Spiritual team guys in here as well.
okay. So well, maybe Johnny's doing a brief right now, but anyhow, I need to jump out. So I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, George. Yeah, and I just to final just Zach comment that the Royal Order of the Seraphim equals Jesus Hominum Salvator in looks like in gematria. It was established on the 54th day of the year, which is why they have the Jesuit IHS in the logo, Royal Order of the Seraphim, highest monarchy of the country or the highest knighthood given by the monarchy of Sweden. founded on the 54th day. Jesuit order equals 54 with the IHS in the logo. It'd be a good way to sum it up. But yeah, great. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Great show, George. And just for the title of this video, I wanted to highlight the conference that is taking place now at Jesuit Fordham University. The International Conference on Cybersecurity takes place every year since 2009. Collaboration between the FBI and Jesuit Fordham. There's more irrefutable proof that the Jesuits are running the show. And I think, and I also know Jesuit Fordham has been honored. Let me just a second pull this up here. Maybe I'll finish up the quote from G. Gordon Liddy. That'd actually probably be a good way to end the show. If I can get my website to comply with me here. Looks like Reddit's being a little glitchy. But I know Fordham University, I have the story on my website. For some reason, it's not working right now. Fordham University was honored by the National Security Agency as well as the Department of Homeland Security. So they're not just affiliated with the FBI, they're affiliated with the whole Gestapo intelligence apparatus. And people, I'm just going to tell you just because I don't know what's going on with my website right now. On my website, just type in G. Gordon Liddy in the search bar, and you can find the quote from G. Gordon Liddy's autobiography book titled Will, where Liddy says that the Jesuits at Fordham University, quote, rule the world and that they enjoy it. Yeah, you can find that on my website. It's just, I don't know what's going on. Jay Sugo is clearly wants me to stop streaming, it looks like. So, but I think that's all for everyone. That's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and namaste. I'll catch you on the next one. Well, I would say, just about the United Nations is totally controlled by Rome. They use the Roman seal on their logo. So I have a video on my channel of the Jesuit Thomas Rees speaking about American politics. He says that the Vatican has always been close to the United Nations. That's a quote coming from the Jesuits. So the UN and the Vatican are one and the same. The papacy, the Catholic bishops, and the Knights of Malta and various other Catholic orders have permanent observer statuses in the United Nations. But that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love. I'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.